Hello everyone. Welcome to the day 6 of Core Java. So, today we will be learning about a very important concept in Java, that is OOPS, Object Oriented Programming. So, what is Object Oriented Programming? Object Oriented Programming is a programming paradigm that is mainly based on the concept of objects. So you can think of it as creating a blueprint for your code, making it easier to manage and understand. So, OOPS, that is object oriented programming, a type of programming based on the objects. So, we have two basic concepts of object oriented programming, that are classes and objects. So, they are used to represent real world concepts and entities. So, what is a class? A class is just a blueprint for creating objects, and an object is an instance of class. So, what does these two line means? So, a class is just a set of objects which shares common properties and behavior. So, it is a user defined blueprint according to which our objects are created. So as we can see in our example, that here we have given an example of a template for a car. So now we have so now let's assume we have so many cars. So they have different characteristics, different behavior, but something is same about them. What is same about them is that they have a name, they have a model, they have a similar some type of color. So now we want to define several cars. So we want to write about several cars. So for that, we can create a class. And in that class, we can define certain fields like we can define color, model, name, mileage, etc. So this would be a blueprint for creating objects. And then what will be our objects? And our objects will be the instance of a class. So let's assume my one instance of class is defining my red Honda as given in the example. And so what it will be telling, we will be getting the value of my object's name, that is name field that is defined in the class. So my name field will get the answer, my red Honda, and the color will be getting red. And then we can give the mileage 20. So now let's assume I want to define the value for Mercedes. So how can I do for Mercedes? First, I will be giving my name as Mercedes, then color as gray, and then mileage as its mileage will surely be good. So this is the common definition of classes and objects. That class provides a blueprint, a template for us, and then object is an instance of a class. So let's take one more example. So we have to write details about different students. So then we can create a class, and the class name can be school. And then in that class, I can define certain fields like I can define int name, int roll number, and then his subjects and grade. So this can be my fields, and then I can create functions for calculating the grades of a student, and then I can create different instances to define the grades, name, roll number of my different students. So this is one more example of classes and objects. Now let's see a practical example of classes and objects. So let's start. So let's create a class for us author. Okay. So let's take two elements. First, I am having my title, and then I will be taking another variable, that is author. So I have taken two variables author. Now we will be creating a constructor. So how do we create a constructor? I will be telling you about more about constructor, that what is constructor. Constructor is a very important topic in classes. So when we create a class and we define some class variables. So we have a constructor which initializes the value, which initializes our class variables. So how do we create a constructor? We first write our access modifier, that is public, and then we write the class name. The constructor's name should be same as the class name. Now here I have my two variables that are author and title. So I am going to pass two parameters here. I am creating a parameterized constructor here. And now what I am going to do, I am going to just initialize my class variables title and author by using this constructor. Oh, I got the name wrong again. Okay, now let's see. So now I have created a constructor. So I have created two variables that are title and author. So now I'm going to create a method. So I just created a method. So I want to display the information. So now let's just print the title. That will be title. And then we are going to print the author. That is our author. So now we have created our class with two variables, one constructor and a function. So now we will be creating object. So now let's create an object. So how do we create an object? We create an object by first. So what we are doing object creation. How do we do that? We first write the name of my class, followed by an object name, and then we use new operator. So new operator is the one that is used to create an object in Java. So this is the convention. So what did I? Okay. So I am getting an error here. So what is this error? Let's read. Constructor practice data in class practice data cannot be applied to given types because I have already created a parameterized constructor here. So I have to pass two values here, and my first value would be title. So let's give a title to a book. So let's give a title Harry Potter, and then we can give an author. So who is the author of Harry Potter? J.K. Rowling. So now we can. So now we have successfully created our object. So I will also be explaining you that why I am just telling you that we had to pass these two values here because I have called or I have created parameterized constructor in my class. So I have to call that constructor. We can also call a no argument constructor, and we also have a default constructor in Java so that if we do not create any constructor in our class, so that default constructor is called by default. And if we have created any constructor, so we get to call that constructor. Now let's call our method, that is display info. Now let's run our program. So you can see here, we got the output as title Harry Potter and author J.K. Rowling. So this is how we create a class. We created a blueprint. So now let's create one more object. So this is my one object. So we used the above template that was giving me the title and author of books. So now let's create one more object. So this is my P2 object. So now let's call one more book. So which book can we call? Let's call the Immortals of Mirwa, one of my favorite book. Okay, and then we are going to pass its author. Okay, now I have missed a semicolon here. Now we will be calling our next object. So as you can see, we got different values for both of our objects. So this is what is the use of our class and object. So objects are the real world entities and class is a blueprint of our object, that what our object can do. It defines the behaviors and properties of our object. So now let's move forward. So moving forward, OOPs have four main pillars. What are these four main pillars? These are encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. So these are very important concepts. So first we will be learning about encapsulation in this video. So encapsulation is a fundamental concept in OOPs. So that involves bundling the data and methods that operate on that data into a single unit called a class. So, as you can see in our video or in this video also, I was using certain words like public, private. So, what are these? So, these are used to restrict direct access to some of the object's components. So, it is a way of preventing unintended interference and misuse. So, encapsulation is a quite important concept that is used widely. So, how do we achieve encapsulation? So, encapsulation, we know that it involves bundling the data and methods that operate on that data within a single unit. So that's what encapsulation do. So let's think of a real life example of encapsulation. Okay, so what can we think of? Let's assume an ATM. Okay. So what is an ATM? So when we go to an ATM, we see that our private data, that is our bank account balance and account number, are kept private. So what are we also get to see something there. What do we get to see? We got to see certain buttons there. What are those buttons? We get to see the deposit, withdrawal, and balance inquiry button there. So this is the use of access modifiers. So we use access modifiers here. How do we use access modifiers here? We preserve our private data, that is our bank account balance and account number, and then we use public methods. We did the methods as public. What methods as public? Our deposit, withdrawal, and balance inquiry method as public. And then we have access control. How do we do access control? As we use a PIN to access our account. So when we use a PIN, only then we can access our account, and the machine doesn't display sensitive information unless you authenticate. So here we use, this is an example, the real life application of encapsulation. So we basically have three type of access modifiers in Java. So what is the use of private modifier? So whenever we use a private modifier before a method or a field or a class, the member method or a field, the member is accessible only within its own class. So the member cannot be accessed outside of its method, of its class. So what is a public access modifier? So public access modifier allows a person to access a member from any other class. We also have one more modifier, that is protected. So protected allows the member to be accessible within its own package and by its subclasses. So we will also be learning that what are subclasses. So some of you may also already know that what are subclasses. So these are our basically three types of access modifiers. So we have one more type of modifier, that is default modifier. That is no modifier. It is accessible only within the same package. So these are the four main types of our access modifiers. So what does encapsulation gives us? So one of the main key feature of encapsulation is data hiding. So the internal state of an object is hidden from the outside. This prevents external entities from directly modifying the internal attributes. So we also have certain things that we can use when we are using different types of access modifiers. So now let's see a practical example of encapsulation. So now also you can see that I defined my two of the variables as private, that was title and author. So here then I created a public method and then I call that method to print my value. So we can also see a practical example of encapsulation. Okay, now let's see a practical example of encapsulation. So let's create, as we were talking about bank, so now let's create a class account. So this is another class that I am creating here. So now let's define two variables here. One is my account number and second is my balance. So what I'm going to do now, I will first be creating a constructor. So this will be a parameterized constructor. So here I am going to initialize my two variables as we did earlier. So this is my double balance. And then I'm going to use this dot account number is equal to account number. And we are going to do this dot balance is equal to balance. So now we have created a constructor. Now let's create a getter method for it. So we also have getter and setter methods here. So how do we use getter and setter methods? So we use getter and setter methods to get the value of our private fields. So in some cases we are required to make our fields private when we have to encapsulate them. So in that cases we use getter and setter method. So here I am creating my balance as get balance. Let's give it a name get balance. So I'm going to get the balance here and this method will be returning my balance. Okay, so I have created the getter methods for my account number and get balance. So now let's also create a deposit method. So it is existing value amount and I am going to just say that if amount is greater than 0 and amount is less than equal to balance, balance minus equal to amount, and then we are just going to write how much amount of money we have withdrawn from here. So else we will just be printing invalid amount. So here we have created a method for. I am also going to create a method public void display info. So what does this method will be doing? It will just be printing my account number and I'm going to print my account number here and then I'm going to print my balance here. Okay, so here I will be getting balance. So now I have created two getter methods. So this was our earlier work. So let's clean it up. So now this was my main class, and I created one more. I created another class that was account here. Now what I'm going to, okay, here I'm getting it. Was this. Now it's done. Now what we will be just doing? We will first be creating an object of our account class as we need to access the methods. And here we have I have created a parameterized constructor. So I will be passing on two values, that is my account number and balance. So now I am just going to call my methods. So first we'll be calling my display information, and then I am going to call my deposit method, and then I am just going to again call my account.display info to see whether I have successfully deposited my money or not. So now let's run our program. So what just happened here? So first I deposited money 500 in my account number 123456, and then I withdraw 150 rupees from my account. After that, my balance got to be 350. So our program is running successfully here. So how did we implemented encapsulation here? So first, we created our two fields that are account number and balance to be private. So these are this is a sensitive information that we don't want to share. So that's why we have turned these two members as two fields as private. So our different class, that was our main class, my main class practice data, it will not be able to access my account number and balance field directly. So for that, I have created my deposit method, and I have also created my display info method that is public, which will display my account number and balance. So this is an example of encapsulation. Okay, so one more example, that is we did the practical example that was of banking system. So it is a very important and very good example of encapsulation, that is our banking system. So thank you everyone for watching. In our next video, we will be moving to the next pillar of OOPS.